now. Why now, but not back then? Well, because the BLM movement of 2020 was anti-white, and it is not safe to denounce anti-whiteism.
I was outraged. I don't think anyone can view the video and objectively come to any other conclusion but that it was an act of murder. And I felt that initially, as everyone did. It's so disturbing. And, you know, the underlying issues beneath that are something that the country is now.
Mike Johnson did not denounce the BLM rioters. He didn't hold any press conference at the site of any of these riots and condemn the protesters to their faces. He didn't tell them to go home.
Struggling with, and I think it's something we have to look at very soberly and with a lot of empathy. And I'm glad to see that's happening around the country. You know, what it's taught me is we now have 4 other children of our own. And my oldest son, Jack, ironically, this year is 14. And I've thought often through all these ordeals over the last couple of weeks about the difference in the experiences between my 2 14-year-old sons, Michael being a Black American and Jack being white, Caucasian. They have different challenges. My son, Jack, has an easier path. He just does. The interesting thing about both of these kids, Michael and Jack, is they're both handsome, articulate, really talented kids, gifted by God to do lots of things. But the reality is, and no one can tell me otherwise.
Instead, he went on national television and declared that George Floyd was murdered. He threw Derek Chauvin under the bus and then proceeded to validate and agree with the BLM rioters and their claims about systemic racism in America.
My son Michael had a harder time than my son Jack is going to have simply because of the color of his skin. And that's a reality. It's an uncomfortable, painful one to acknowledge, but people have to recognize that's a fact.
Some colleges are banning free speech on college campuses. Well, no more, because I'm about to sign a law that protects free speech on college campuses in Texas.
Anti-Semitic platforms like Gab have no place in Texas and certainly do not represent Texas values. What does represent Texas values is legislation like this by Representative King and Representative Coburn that fights anti-Semitism in Texas.
Shouldn't have to do it. First Amendment guarantees it. Now it's law in Texas.
What's going on, everybody? Matt Walsh absolutely torched Mike Johnson for being a fraud Speaker of the House and a complete hypocrite when cities were burned down during the BLM Summer of Love 2020. I wanted to share the clips. I have about 10 clips I want to share, been putting in work. I want to do a reaction to Matt Walsh's video for multiple reasons. One, I believe he's one of the only mainstream high-level people in conservative media who's telling the truth about that. Most are deceiving. Two, I believe in positive reinforcement when people do tell the truth. I'm not just trying to be a critic. I want to show love. And three, I'm watching Matt Walsh on Twitter go through what a lot of us went through in 2019, which is they're trying to say he's far right. They're trying to say that he's siding with the bad guys, and nobody seems to be able to beat his argument because that's what they do. They resort to smears and false connections rather when you do this type of stuff. So I got all these videos and I just want to show how badly he torched Mike Johnson. And I hope a lot of conservatives will listen to this because he pointed out the hypocrisy completely. And also there's a few holes that I want to kind of fill in because there's things that he's saying in the definition that either Matt is not aware of or he doesn't want to speak on. No worries. I'm going to fill in the gaps. And that's what the show is today. Give me a thumbs up in the chat and give me a thumbs up on the video for the algorithm. Dream Rare Podcast starts now. I'm only going to look at the comments now and at the end because I have a lot of clips to play and I don't want to mess up. Appreciate you guys. I'm very grateful. Been inspired recently doing 2-a-days, hitting the gym pretty hard. So it's been a good week, good month, good year. Appreciate you guys.
It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
What's going on? Shifty Eye said false equivalency. Yeah, I just didn't feel like stumbling over it because I just decided to go in a different direction. But anyway, let's get into the show. Appreciate it, though. I let this clip kind of fly pretty long, and the reason I'm doing it, I'm hoping, I really pray that they do not, well, actually, I'm not praying for this, to be honest. I'm just hoping it happens. It's not like a literal prayer of mine. I'd rather spend my praying time on something more important. But in general, I hope they let this clip fly. I'm letting it play because it's a lot of Matt Walsh using other clips. So I don't know that they're going to necessarily censor it or try to say I'm using too much of the clip, because I think 80% of it is Matt Walsh playing clips of Speaker Johnson. But these 3 clips I'm about to play in a row are just the perfect summary of what frauds Republicans are. And they're trying so hard to trick people, and they're trying so hard to convince you that, no, this is different, and we're doing it for America, and this is different than free speech, but it's really not. They're really lying. And I give Matt Walsh all the credit in the world. He's not backing off of this topic. And, I just want to let Matt know that millions of people know that he's right about this. So you have no reason to back down. You're not wrong, and you're not a liar. It doesn't seem like on this topic. So let's let it fly. Here is him just doing a masterclass, destroying what a hypocrite Mike Johnson is. And there's other clips of all the things that Mike Johnson said on college campus, but I just want to let you guys know now, I didn't want to play all of them, but he's on Columbia University doing his little speech. And this is what Matt Walsh said in response.
But it's hard not to notice a stark contrast here. When it comes to the pro-Palestine demonstrations, he is bold and loud in his denunciations. But what did he have to say only a few years ago when BLM mobs were torching our cities? Now, those protests, quote unquote, were far, far, far more destructive, like by an infinite margin. What was Mike Johnson's response back then? Well, let's take a trip down memory lane, shall we?
What did you feel when you watched the video of George Floyd being killed?
I was outraged. I don't think anyone can view the video and objectively come to any other conclusion but that it was an act of murder. And I felt that initially, as everyone did. It's so disturbing. And, the underlying issues beneath that are something that the country is now struggling with. And I think it's something we have to look at very soberly and with a lot of empathy. And I'm glad to see that's happening around the country. What it's taught me is we now have 4 other children of our own. And my oldest son, Jack, ironically, this year is 14. And I've thought often through all these ordeals over the last couple of weeks about the difference in the experiences between my 2 14-year-old sons, Michael being a Black American and Jack being white, Caucasian. They have different challenges. My son, Jack, has an easier path. He just does. The interesting thing about both of these kids, Michael and Jack, is they're both handsome, articulate, really talented kids, gifted by God to do lots of things. But the reality is, and no one can tell me otherwise, my son Michael had a harder time than my son Jack is going to have simply because of the color of his skin. And that's a reality. It's an uncomfortable, painful one to acknowledge, but people have to recognize that's a fact.
What should we do about that?
I think that we really do need systematic change. I think we need transformative solutions.
Systematic change for our systemically racist country. How bold and courageous. So, turns out, Mike Johnson did not denounce the BLM rioters. He didn't hold any press conference at the site of any of these riots and condemn the protesters to their faces. He didn't tell them to go home.
So this is one of the many good angles. Matt Walsh has a few, but the one good one is during the BLM riots, you had not just protests on college campuses, you had straight up riots, straight up looting, fiascos all over the country. I would say it's 100 times worse than what's going on the college campus. It's not even really close at all. And where was the Republican Party and Speaker Mike Johnson? As Matt Walsh points out, not only were they not doing anything or not trying to use their police power to stop down what is far beyond a protest and far beyond what's going on at Columbia now, but they actually justified it. And Mike Johnson essentially was a BLM activist. He's just like, oh my gosh, racism's so real. We need systemic change, which that's nice to say. But while the country is burning down, if you're saying that, as Matt Walsh is pointing out, it's basically like a green light that it seems like you agree with these protesters and you're not even acknowledging the chaos that's going on. Let's play another clip.
Instead, he went on national television and declared that George Floyd was murdered. He threw Derek Chauvin under the bus and then proceeded to validate and agree with the BLM rioters and their claims about systemic racism in America. That's what he did. And now he wants us to give him credit because he's at Columbia University making fun of the dumb college kids. I don't give him any credit for that.
As he deserves no credit. No credit whatsoever. He's doing nothing brave. This is bipartisan. They're doing it in California. They're doing it all over the country. It's the uniparty. It's the same thing as the $100 billion bill. There's nothing brave about this at all. It's status quo. It's establishment. It's just showing you who's pulling the strings in both parties. Who's pulling the strings of the Republican Party? It's not the voters. It's not the taxpayers. It's not conservatives. It's hate speech. Hate speech that I'm not saying it is hate speech, but it's like insert. They would say that telling the truth about this is hate speech because saying that Mike Johnson works for his donors is hate speech now. Of course it's true, but it's also hate speech because depending who the donors are, it's like when you point out, I always use pharmaceutical because it's like an easy analogy for people to like swallow before the harder one comes in. But it's like if you take money from big pharma and then you say, oh, everybody who disagrees with me is a conspiracy theory and anti-pharmatic, it's like, no, you're just lying and taking money. The Republicans do the same thing. They're just passing hate speech laws in America to try to make it illegal for you to say that they're taking money from a group of people that allegedly doesn't even exist or congregate whatsoever. Meanwhile, there's hundreds of groups literally pushing for their interests that you're not even allowed to talk about whatsoever. It's a fascinating phenomenon that you're not going to hear in most conservative media. Matt Walsh is talking about it, and now he is seeing conservative ink and a lot of his allies turn against him for being wrong. No. For being hateful. No. For being right. This happened to a lot of people in 2019, and it's nice to see Matt not backing down. We appreciate it, and let's keep playing.
And I'm picking on Mike Johnson here for good reason. He's a Speaker of the House, but I could play this game with almost any Republican politician who has been vocal in their denunciations of the so-called Free Palestine movement. Almost none of them showed even a fraction of that boldness when BLM was terrorizing not just Ivy League campuses, but the entire country, whole cities, communities of normal people, not these dumb Ivy League college kids.
Absolutely. To go even further and make a different point, where was the boldness during the lockdown? The greatest, I would say, infringement on civil liberty in my lifetime. There's never been anything like it. Hopefully there's never anything like it again. Who knows what the real death toll to the lockdowns and the pharmaceutical rollout is, because they're never going to tell the truth about all of the mental illness, drug abuse, alcohol abuse. You add up all the numbers of the things that they helped cause, closing down gyms, domestic abuse rising. They'll never tell you the true death count and the true toll that it took psychologically, mentally. We're still dealing with it economically. I mean, that's one of the greatest tragedies in modern history. And I'm not saying nothing's worse. I'm just saying it's crazy what they did. Where was the boldness from the Republican Party then? It didn't exist. I believe Thomas Massie was the only person who really spoke out about it at the time that it happened. A few commentators did. Ron DeSantis did 3 months late. Governor Abbott was 4 or 5 months late. Kristi Noem was a few months late, but she did a better job than most. Besides that, our whole party showed no bold. I'm trying to be nicer because I know I've been kind of a dick recently. I just can't help myself. I apologize. I'm a nice person. I'm just so ticked off at this stuff. Sorry. You have to be an idiot to think that the Republican Party cares about your liberty, like a literal idiot. So when they're taking more and more liberty, you see it like 4 times out of 5, but you're like, no, this one is for Israel. This one is for patriotism. No, these people let your country get locked down, and they funneled money before foreign countries to the pharmaceutical industry. It's just like it's just like as soon as one scam stops, the next one starts like the month later, and they send money somewhere else and you're not allowed to talk about it. It's so obvious. And Matt's right. It's the complete proper framing, complete proper framing to say that where were these people during the BLM riots that, I'm sorry, regardless of what side of the fence you were on, way worse than these Palestine protests. And to be fair, I don't know if I have the clips. I think I do at some point. Matt calls out the left too, where he's like, you guys are hypocrites also. You guys were on the wrong side of everything. Now you're doing this. And then also the Democratic media is against it. Let me play a few more clips, and then we're going to get down into the nitty gritty of a part that I think that Matt is missing or not including. And that's no disrespect. I'm just trying to do my job. And hopefully one day he'll cover this in his videos too. If not, it's all good. I'll take what I could get. I appreciate his take here. I think it's great, unique. It's him. Nothing wrong with it.
Now, of course, the same can even more be said for the people in corporate media, academia, elsewhere who have been speaking out against the campus protests this month. All of them, literally all of them, were on the side of these same activists 4 years ago when those activists were looting and burning our cities. Now, this is not just some cheap gotcha moment. The point is that most of these people pretending to be shocked and appalled by the campus protests are at least partially to blame for them. You validated these activists and their tactics. In fact, you validated tactics much worse, much more destructive, much more disruptive than this.
1,000,000%. So Matt didn't talk about it in this video, but let's ask our audience, why? Why did so many Democratic establishment types, why did so many Democrat elites in the Democratic Party and billionaires that fund these liberal universities, why were they okay with the BLM riots? Why were they okay with everything liberals have been doing the past 5 or 6 years? Why were they okay with shutting down free speech of other people? Why were they pushing pharmaceuticals and calling everyone a conspiracy theorist who disagreed? Why were they okay with all of that stuff as he talks about BLM? And why are those Democrat elites now upset at these protesters when Matt Walsh points out that these protests are way less crazy than the BLM riots were? What's the difference? Zionism. There's ideological battles going on, and certain people have ideological priorities. You know, if that's I need to go this way now, or I might need to vote for Trump because of this. That means that's their priority over feminism. That's their priority over economics. That's their priority over anything that bothered you over the last 6 years. If none of that bothered them and the money was flowing and the power was flowing and they said, no, this is good, you got to do that for this, and now they have a problem, Matt Walsh is like, you guys are hypocrites too. Absolutely, but it's, you know, a priority. And I figured this out. Matt is, if he keeps going down this path, he's going to get the same treatment as I got in 2019. When you figure this stuff out, they just keep calling you anti-Semitic. They say, oh, Matt's siding with the terrorists. He's like, no, I'm not. You're this, you're that. You're siding with the groypers. They're talking to Matt. And Matt doesn't even like a lot of those kids. But he's just like, no, I'm saying what I'm saying. But this is the game that they play. And it's a slippery slope. And I wish Matt Walsh all the luck, because I've already seen how they treat myself and anyone that talks about these topics. It's a total dead end when it comes to Republican politics. They try to smear you, kick you out of media circles and ruin your life if you dare point out the obvious, which is that the priority of our party? If you can't fix a wall, but you could send money to these countries, if you can't save our civil liberty during a COVID lockdown, but you could funnel money to the pharmaceutical industry, it's so obviously clear that their priorities are not America first, and their priorities are not conservatives first or liberty first or economics first. It's all a front. It's like the Republican Party is one giant front. And people get mad when I say this. I'm not saying to vote for Joe Biden. He's the dumbest, worst, stupidest person I've ever seen in the history of American politics in a major position. It's insane that he's even able to be there and get this stuff done. He sucks. Don't vote Democrats. Don't vote Biden. They're not your solution. Go vote Republican. If you're inspired to, knock yourself out. I'm just saying voting's not going to get our way out of this because the Republican Party is a front. Literally nothing they say is what they believe. Nothing. Not the First Amendment, not the Second Amendment, not the Fourth Amendment, not America First, not secure the border, not, people over this, or we're fighting the deep state. None of it's true. And once you figure out that it's not true and you figure out how it's not true and you realize that they have certain priorities above other things, they start yelling at you. They either say you're not loyal enough to Donald Trump, or if you figure out, like, I'm not being hateful, I'm not being mean. It's just in the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, there's certain people that prioritize Zionism over the First Amendment and Zionism over liberalism. So if they're liberals until that and they switch to the other side, like Matt Walsh is saying, what changed? That's the priority. But there's speech laws being passed in America to say that it's hate speech, to say that that's the priority. Isn't that just interesting? Let's play the next clip.
Why now, but not back then? Well, because the BLM movement of 2020 was anti-white, and it is not safe to denounce anti-whiteism. Which is why Mike Johnson never has denounced it and never, ever, ever will. And we all know that. It is much safer and much more acceptable in polite society to denounce anti-Semitism. So they're happy to do so.
He said it, not me. But is he wrong? It's easier to denounce anti-Semitism than anti-whiteism. That's what Matt Walsh said. Is he wrong? Not only are you not allowed to denounce anti-whiteism, you're not even allowed to say it even exists at all. I'm not playing the victim. I'm not crying. I'm just pointing out the obvious. So he's explaining this, and I want to play this next clip of him defining anti-Semitism. And I think eventually Matt probably will cover this because he'll figure it out with all the backlash he's getting. His definition of anti-Semitism is not the definition of anti-Semitism. Not because I'm Mr. Webster Dictionary and I make definitions. I don't make definitions. But the IHRA does make the definition of anti-Semitism, and it's being passed in American legislation. In fact, if you go to 20 or 30 different bills from Trump, from DeSantis, from Abbott, from Huckabee, from all of these politicians, and it's an anti-Semitism bill, if you take them all and you hand them to me and you really search them, like I have and research them, they all use the same exact definition. So while I think Matt's heart is in the right place, and he might perhaps to him think that that's the definition, it's not the definition that is being adopted all over the world. And what Matt either doesn't understand or he's pretending he doesn't understand, it's like when Candace Owens tried to talk about anti-Semitism, and she said on the show with Rabbi Barclay, she said, well, not everybody agrees with your definition of anti-Semitism. If you watch the debate, he goes, well, actually they do. Actually, sorry, I didn't mean to yell. That was pretty audio wise bad, but actually they do. Actually, everybody agrees. And it's like, actually, he's kind of right. I'm not going to say everyone agrees because, of course, tens of thousands of Jewish people disagree and other people disagree. But systemically, government wise, worldwide, they actually do agree on a definition. So I just want to say this before and show you guys again, for those who are new or those who want to really understand. What he's saying, his perception is like a black person saying this is what racist means, but then the definition of racism is being passed into law and it means a million things now. And now if you vote for the Republican Party, you're a racist. So let's play what Matt thinks anti-Semitism is versus what the federal government and state governments, not just in America, but around the world, think anti-Semitism is, because it's two different things. And Matt Walsh can only pretend not to know for so long, whether he does or not. I think he is going to figure it out eventually.
There's nothing wrong with denouncing anti-Semitism, of course. Anti-Semitism, actual anti-Semitism, which is the hatred of Jewish people for being Jewish, is evil and should be denounced, and very often is denounced by both sides of the political divide. However sincere or insincere that may be with their denunciations, they do denounce it all the time.
I agree. Denounce evil, denounce hate, denounce people being scumbags and hating entire groups. I agree with that. But that definition is not the definition. And that's Jeremy Boring says the same exact thing as Matt Walsh, which is interesting to me. I wonder if that's the Daily Wire line. You just have to say, this is the definition of anti-Semitism, when, that's not really what's being passed into law. Because Jeremy has a hard time defining it or naming what it is. He's like, no, this is what the definition is. It's hatred of these people. Well, that's what you keep saying, but on the State Department website, I'm going to explain it real quick, and I got other stuff to get to. If this is the first time you've watched my show, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. Every day that I post anything, there's always people in the comments that say they've never heard this, and I'm not blaming you. Nobody talks about it. You get blacklisted from conservative media if you do talk about it. I think most people know that talking about it is not good for business, so they don't talk about it. But in general, if you really want to know what the definition of anti-Semitism is, that's being passed through hundreds of governments around the world, that's being passed in dozens of states multiple times. Trump, DeSantis, they're all passing the same exact definition, which lists out essentially hate speech phrases and thought crimes, which is anti-Semitism. Google State Department defining anti-Semitism, and you could find it. That's all you have to type into Google or whatever you use, DuckDuckGo. State Department defining anti-Semitism, and this will pop up as the first search result. It's the U.S. Department of State. They do, in my opinion, the best and easiest job to learn this stuff. It says defining anti-Semitism. Like I said, it's the IHRA law that was apparently created since 2010. I guess in 2016, they came together in Bucharest. I said Budapest the other day, but I went Bucharest, and they say that adopting the following non-legally binding working definition of anti-Semitism, it's non-legally binding until it is legally binding and they pass it into law. So they came together, and to be quite honest, I have no idea who that group is. I haven't really done that much research, but I would guess that can you say they have power? But I would guess they must have a lot of leeway or sway, because I saw Mali, and I said, I tweeted one time, I said, I guarantee you Mali will pass through the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism through Argentina. I searched it. It's already been passed through, not by Mali, but by the former president. So they already have the working definition of anti-Semitism passed into their law. Governor Abbott, you name it, you guess a Republican, they've probably passed it into law if they're a governor. Let me read a few, because there's, I think, 11 or so. I'm not sure how many, but let me just read a few of these things that are basically thought crimes or hate speech thoughts. And, of course, they can't just arrest you in America, but in other countries they can. You can go to jail. There's people sitting in jail right now for questioning historical events or saying things that are perceived as hateful. And when you get to Europe, maybe you should care about free speech for any topic, but say you don't care about this topic and you say, anomaly, I don't care. Throw people in jail for questioning things. Well, if you go to Europe or any place that has these laws, there's always other laws. Then it's Islam. Then it's, all these people that claim that they the Muslims are doing this and that. So why would you want to pass blasphemy laws in America that make it a hate speech offense to talk about a race and a religion, when eventually, of course, you look around all of the countries that have that, they usually expand it into other races, other religions, and it turns out to be pretty much everyone but you. And then it's like everyone can say whatever they want about you, but you can't even defend yourself without being called hateful. So it's a simple free speech principle, but let's look at a few of them before we get to Matt Walsh's. And if you want to look at them all, as I said, defining anti-Semitism, State Department. So one of them is drawing comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy to that of the Nazis, applying double standards by requiring behavior not expected of other democratic nations, talking about Israel, using the symbols and images associated with classic anti-Semitism, such as Jews killing Jesus or blood libel, which Ben Shapiro always says blood libel, accusing Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel or the alleged priorities of Jews worldwide than to the interests of their own nation, which Ben Shapiro once tweeted almost that identical speech law. He says, American Jews, whether ethnic or religious, are loyal to America, not Israel. Any dual loyalty supposition is anti-Semitism. So if you say Ben Shapiro has loyalty to Israel, even though he's almost literally said that in his speeches, I don't care who he's loyal to. Let's say Ben Shapiro loves America. He's a patriot. Why would you tweet that it's anti-Semitism to say that anyone of your race or religion has loyalty to another country? It's just a little bit sketchy. It's a little bit odd. And I remember during the pandemic, I just had a great chat with somebody named Mark Lobener. He's a bodybuilder, super cool guy, American patriot. He happens to be Jewish. And I remember, because I follow him, he was really good during the pandemic, and we're friends now. We've never met, but I'd love to meet the guy. Great guy. He was calling Israel Nazis, because he didn't like the policy of the vaccine. He's Jewish, right? He's conservative. He's not self-hating or anything. He doesn't hate Israel, but he didn't like their vaccine policy. So he was calling them Nazis. I wasn't, but he was. Technically, according to those hate speech laws, comparing that government ever to the other people is hate speech. That's what's being passed through law. So I just want to make this clear before I move on. Every time I tweet anything or post on Facebook, people start making straw mans. Look at this. Look at that. Look at what they're passing out. Look at what they're saying. Look at what they're doing. That's not what's being passed through law. Not that. What I showed you is being passed through law. So they'll always use an event or a straw man or a flyer to be like, that's what that is. That's not what they're passing through law. It's worth learning. Anyway, let's move on. Matt Walsh, he definitely says some bold stuff in this breakdown.
But hating white people for being white is evil too. And yet again, most of these people have never once, not once ever, not ever explicitly condemned that kind of bigotry or even acknowledged that it exists. And that imbalance and double standard really matters.
So he's pointing this out to the Republican Party, I think, and the Democratic Party. He's saying the hypocrisy and the imbalance matters. Honestly, I can't tell what people's end goals are anymore, but I'm noticing a lot of people that are freaking out because they feel like hate is rising. And they're like, oh my gosh, I've never seen it before. There's so much anti-Semitism, this and that. I think self-awareness and self-accountability goes a long way. If there's a country that's passing hate speech laws in America, the Republican Party is sending hundreds of billions of dollars to foreign countries. Republican politicians are crying about the BLM riots and saying that they need to fix systemic change. Meanwhile, these protests are way more tame, but they're shutting it down. In certain states, you can't get government or state contracts without signing an Israeli loyalty pledge to a foreign country. And then we're giving $30 billion to that country. And then you're not even allowed to say that anything's happening in that country, or else they call you Hamas, which this is why it's creepy. Hamas is Hamas. Everybody else is not Hamas, okay? Falsely accusing people of Hamas is not only crazy, it's creepy, because when you listen to people like Ben Shapiro talk about Hamas, it sounds like they want to kill him. You know what I'm saying? Wipe them out, get rid of them. Okay, it's a foreign government or a foreign group of terrorists that I know very little about or don't care. I'm an American. I have nothing to do with Palestine, Israel. But listen to what he says about the protesters on college campus, many of whom are Jewish. This is the point that a lot of people don't want to point out. A lot of the left-wing kids on the college campus that are protesting the hardest are Jewish. Some of the biggest, most outspoken voices about what's going on in Israel, Palestine are Jewish. Like Ben says, everyone is not loyal to Israel, and all the ones that aren't, Ben seems to call Hamas.
Right now, Hamas is running Columbia University. That appears to be the way things are at America's top universities, where students who pretty openly and obviously back terrorist groups are now violating all of the time, place, and manner restrictions at
So he's calling them all Hamas, essentially. I mean, this is creepy to me, because it's like, I'm not stopping Israel. I'm not asking them to listen to me on their foreign policy if they want to defend or protect themselves. But at the end of the day, when you listen to certain pro-Israel people and they're like, well, they're all kind of Hamas because they voted for it. And you're like, well, the election was like in 2004, you know, and a lot, like half the population of Gaza, I believe, is like under 18. So it's like they're justifying killing women and children because of a 2004 vote. Thank God they don't justify that in America, because I didn't vote for Joe Biden. I'm not responsible for Obama and Bush. To be honest, that's what Osama bin Laden thought. Osama bin Laden did what he did because of America's relationship in the Middle East and Israel, and said thousands of people deserve to die here because of their relationship to the taxpayer money and where it's going. And I completely disagree with that. It's disgusting what bin Laden did. I completely condemn it on all fronts, and I hate every bit of it in his attack on America. In no way, shape, or form would I ever justify it. It's disgusting. But that's kind of what people on the pro-Israel side are doing in a sense, is basically saying, well, you know, because you voted for that government, then, you know, it's kind of your fault because they're doing this. It's like, how is a 17-year-old going to have any say in that? And then also, it's like, now you're calling American citizens, many of whom are Jewish, Hamas. What do you want to do with them? Because I've heard what you want to do to Hamas, like the real Hamas. But if you call everybody Hamas, I mean, doesn't that seem a little weird? I give you the free speech to do that, but do you give people the free speech to disagree, or do you just tweet out the anti-Semitism hate speech laws that are being passed through U.S. government? Matt Walsh points this out. He reads the Governor Abbott tweet, and he explains how fake a lot of Republicans are being about it. And Matt, you know, I don't know what's going to go on, but he's going to win this argument 10 times out of 10, because he's not lying. He's not using words to put people down. He's not using hate speech phrases to say you can't say that. He's just being honest. So, you know, he's a big figure. A lot of people that follow him are disagreeing with him, and he's just going to keep destroying him because he's right on this topic. Let's read the tweet and, you know, kind of explain what other people are saying about it.
Arrests being made right now and will continue until the crowd disperses. These protesters belong in jail. Anti-Semitism will...
Sorry, I'm going to do it again, but I forgot. I think at the end of it, I have 2 extra clips. I have what Matt said. Then I have what Governor Abbott, he signed a free speech on college campus thing in 2019 that he's completely against now. And then he also tried to shut down a social media channel that literally says, we want to use the First Amendment as our basis. We're not censoring any political speech, any quote unquote hate speech. We allow, as long as the First Amendment, you know, they don't allow anything that's illegal, but if it's legal from the First Amendment, they allow it. And Governor Abbott tried to shut it down years ago. He's a total fraud. Let's watch. Sorry. I just wanted to let you know there's 3 clips in there. It's Matt Walsh reading the tweet. Then it's Governor Abbott in 2019 signing the speech law. Then it's Governor Abbott sometime, I think in 2019 or 2020, going against the law he just signed to say that hate speech has no place in Texas.
Arrests being made right now and will continue until the crowd disperses. These protesters belong in jail. Anti-Semitism will not be tolerated in Texas, period. Students joining in hate-filled anti-Semitic protests at any public college or university in Texas should be expelled. Now, there are plenty of conservatives who have tried to twist themselves into pretzel-like shapes in search of some defensible interpretation of Greg Abbott's own words. But we should not have to twist ourselves into any shape for the sake of our political leaders.
Some colleges are banning free speech on college campuses. Well, no more, because I'm about to sign a law that protects free speech on college campuses in Texas. Shouldn't have to do it. First Amendment guarantees it. Now, it's law in Texas.
Anti-Semitic platforms like Gab have no place in Texas and certainly do not represent Texas values. What does represent Texas values is legislation like this by Representative King and Representative Goldman that fights anti-Semitism in Texas.
Before I read a few comments, I just kind of want to sum up that part of it. People will say that Governor Abbott is shutting down the protests because they're doing something illegal. And Matt Walsh made the case. He said, if that's the truth, then why is he saying that instead of anti-Semitism? The truth is, there's hundreds of laws in America specifically for Israel. You can't protest, you can't boycott, you can't divest, you can't sanction. You could protest America, you could protest California, you could boycott California, you could boycott anything American, anything this, that, this, except for one country. They're all passing these laws everywhere. So anybody that's not talking about that angle of it, either they're ignorant to it, possible, uneducated, possible, or they're just lying and they don't want to talk about it. Highly probable, considering some of these people have been covering politics for 20 years and used to call Ron Paul anti-Semitic for not wanting to send foreign aid to Israel. So it's hard for me to believe that they don't know that that's happening, especially when they're tweeting the hate speech laws on their Twitter as if they're fact. With that being said, he's not trying to shut down. And I think Matt did a great job of it, where it's like with the BLM stuff, where was all of this then? That was a lot crazier. Some people did stuff, but at the end of the day, they're flirting on the lines of destroying the First Amendment. And they've already tried to pass bills to sell it out. You know, Abby Martin, somebody told me that she won a lawsuit. Regardless of what you think of Abby Martin, she's a progressive liberal who's very, sympathetic to Gaza and very critical of Israel. I mean, that's a short, summary of who she is. I'm sure she's much more than that. But really, at a certain point after Republicans passed that law, this was years ago, she went to go speak on a college campus. Because of these hate speech Israeli loyalty pledge laws that are being passed in America, I believe the college was trying to shut down her ability to speak at the college campus because she was protesting a country that it's almost now illegal to protest. There's so many laws like limiting how you could talk or protest Israel. Someone told me she won the lawsuit because it was unconstitutional. I didn't follow up on the story, but this has been a problem for 4 or 5 years. It's why they only care now, not during the BLM, because that's who the Republican Party is. Like, they care about your liberty until you don't. They care about the First Amendment until they don't. They want to keep the country open until they don't. They want to take on big pharma until they don't. It's like a front. Everything they're doing is totally fake. And when you're being honest and starting to recognize patterns and doing research and crunching data, or just looking at opensecrets.org, which is like a public information portal where you could find out who your senator's taking money from. Everyone that says they stand with a certain country, almost every time they're taking money from a lobbying group that want for that country. Like every time. It's like, why aren't you sitting with them? You're standing with them. Like standing with them like you stand with them, or standing with them like you took money to stand with them. Like, why don't you tweet I stand with Big Pharma? You're taking money from them too. So there's a different game being played than most people realize. And I appreciate Matt Walsh for at least starting a conversation about it, because without playing the victim, this is what conservative media has tried so hard to do for 5 years now. They've tried to lie about the topic, gatekeep the topic, because a lot of them, this is not hate speech, it's just the truth. A lot of them rely on donor money. A lot of them rely on business connections. And just like certain things, the business and the money stops flowing, just like the business and the money stop flowing for these college universities once they cross that threshold. It's the same in both parties, and it's the same in conservative media. So as soon as this comes up, a lot of people just want to sweep it under the rug. Charlie Kirk tweeted yesterday, and he said, this is kind of crossing the lines of free speech on college campuses. The funniest thing about Charlie is I appreciate that he's saying that now. He is taking an honest and ethical stance. But he knew about this in 2019. Not only did he know about this in 2019, he was part of the, I would say, movement to cover this all up. Like, he tried to pin it all on Nick Fuentes and his people and say that that's bottom line and do the us versus them thing. It's the same as, like, now there's Republicans trying to say that Matt Walsh is with Hamas or with the left, when that's not what he's saying at all. Like, the truth is the truth. He's just saying what he thinks about the First Amendment. It has nothing to do with Nick Fuentes or Hamas or anything. But these are the games that Charlie played in 2019, right? Because Nick and his audience, they took a certain stance on this topic. Ben Shapiro and Charlie took the opposite stance. And then Ben Shapiro and Charlie tried to gaslight anybody into thinking that if you agreed with them, you're bad, you're horrible, you're wrong, and that means they must be right. As a lot of people work to blacklist anybody based off of like retweets. It's like Candace Owens is getting in trouble now because she liked a tweet on Twitter. This is who the Republican Party is. If you like a tweet, or if somebody retweets your tweet that they don't like, they run around all these stupid fake controlled op media plant companies and say, oh, don't work with them, they're too far right. Oh, don't work. Because this is the thing that they're gatekeeping. It's the same thing as the Republican Party and the politicians. Their interests are not your interests. Their priorities are not your priorities. They don't even care about the First Amendment at all. They only pretend to when it's politically convenient, but as soon as, another topic comes up, they shut it down. And this is perhaps an interesting point to those who might disagree with me for whatever reason, even though I'm not lying. This doesn't, I don't know what people's true agenda is. Is it divide and conquer? Is it pure chaos? Do you want America to fall apart? In no way, shape, or form is this lowering hate. If there's a war going on, and this is what really annoys me about what Ben is saying, of course there's some people on college campuses that suck. And to be honest, I don't feel very much similarities to me and any of these people on college campuses. A lot of them are spoiled leftist students. So was Occupy Wall Street, but that doesn't mean the banks were right. But in general, Ben tries to do the same thing that liberals do with Russia. If you don't support the war in Ukraine, if you don't support Zelensky, and if you want it to end, they'll say you're pro-Putin, Ben is doing the same thing. If you don't agree with his foreign policy, you're a terrorist, essentially, while they kill tens of thousands of people. And not everybody in Gaza is a terrorist. I mean, there's people dying that are completely innocent, hiding out near churches, getting hit with stray bullets, stray missiles, or whatever. It's really sad what's going on over there. And it's really sad what's going on all sides of all war. But to say that you support Putin if you want the Ukraine war to end is the same thing Ben Shapiro's doing with Israel and Palestine. It's a way to gaslight people and basically smear any opponent of your narrative, which is keep giving them foreign aid, don't talk about the speech laws, and don't allow people to do this and that. Okay, but in no way, shape, or form is this making people like Israel more. And this isn't helping Jewish people. In my personal opinion, based off of reality, someone like Dave Smith is actually good for lowering anti-Semitism, whatever that definition is now, since it's been so bloated and expanded. But it's Dave Smith is a Jewish person who likes America, is very honest, and he's willing to say, I do see the hate rising, but I also am taking self-accountability to understand why it's rising, and I'm being honest about it in hopes to lower it. That's what Dave Smith does. That lowers anti-Semitism. Passing speech laws, saying that you can't have an opinion about tens of thousands of civilians dying, saying you can't have an opinion about a war, saying we just need to keep giving them foreign aid, and it's hate speech to say that we're not doing it while our cities are falling apart, while our infrastructures are falling apart, while the country's in shambles, while inflation's high. And then I have friends of mine that I really like and I really respect. And I see some of them posting now, I can't believe this anti-Semitism's rising, and they're getting ratioed in their comments, and people are being super rude. I'm not justifying what the people are saying, but it's get a clue. Have an ounce of self-awareness and self-accountability. If you are, you know what I'm saying? If you are of that ethnicity and that religion, you don't have to agree with people or pick a side of the war, but you can't gaslight everybody into not seeing. It'd be yeah, I understand. It would be if a bunch of countries hated America right now, and I'm yeah, they just hate us for our freedom. Or they might hate us because we're starting multiple front wars. Russians might hate us because we're funding Ukraine. Palestinians might hate us because we're funding Israel. In other countries, Iran probably hates us because we're funding Israel. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just like, I wouldn't just completely lack self-awareness and be like, I don't get it. Everybody just, it doesn't work that way. And it just makes people not trust you. And passing speech laws into basically trying to force people to trust you and believe you and say that you've never exaggerated in your life is a crazy way to get people on your side. Like, it's absolutely insane. It's literally not working. It's never going to work. And shutting down these protests is not going to work either. And ignoring the fact, I'm not saying you have to agree with it, but there's probably tens of thousands, if not more, of Jewish leftists that are protesting Israel. You think they hate Jews? No, they just don't like what the Israeli government's doing. Whether they're right or wrong, that's what they're thinking. They don't hate Jews. They just want the war to stop, and they see Israel as an imperialist. I'm not saying that they're right or you have to agree with them, but just gaslighting everybody constantly into thinking everybody's Hamas and, we need more speech laws, or secondly, it's like, do we have a country or not? It's the same way the BLM stuff failed. And I know there's some people that are so self-absorbed in a sense that they would say, well, it's different than the BLM because, this topic is more important. Okay, even if that were true, it doesn't mean it's going to work. Like, say, obviously slavery was horrible, and say, like racism's like spiraling out of control and we want equality, right? It doesn't mean what BLM is doing is working for that. It's only, in my view, not just BLM, the organization, but I'm just talking about this basic, like, calling everything racist all the time and the double standards and the hypocrisy and not allowing people to do what you're doing and just having no accountability for crime in certain cities. It's only made hundreds of millions of people not care what you're saying because they don't believe you, they don't trust you, they believe their own eyes over propaganda, and they're tired of not being able to have a conversation about something that's clearly happening while you just want to talk over and call everything racist. Like, it didn't work. It's not working. It hasn't led to social cohesion. It hasn't led to black areas like booming. It's like a lot of these areas where they riot, it just drives out business. I had a conversation with somebody that I like, and they were kind of on the side of who cares if people steal from Nordstrom because they have insurance. Like, that's what a lot of left-leaning people think. And I didn't yell at them, although I think it's insane. I'm just like, in a functional neighborhood, I don't care about Nordstrom, but in a functional neighborhood, you have shops, stores, businesses. If all the businesses are getting terrorized, they leave, they shut down. If you have no businesses or stores, now you live in the hood. Now you live in a place it's not a great place to live. Like, and you're lying. Like, I've been to the hood. I've been to bad areas. I've been threatened on the street just for looking like I didn't belong there. They're not just terrorizing and freaking out at Nordstrom's. It's everyone. It's every bodega. It's every store owner. It's every Chinese shop. Like, people are acting that way to every store. It's not like they're targeting Nordstrom because it's got a lot of money. They're just wiling out everywhere, and nobody really wants to work there, run a business there. So it's like, it destroys the community from within. It's not only not good for America, it's not even good for black cities. And I'm not saying everyone is like that, but it's like this idea that the BLM, the way that they're operating, even if they had good intentions, the idea that what they're doing is working is insane. It's not working. It's failing all over the place. And not only is it failing all over the place, but very few people even listen to it now. And if you look at who's booming in podcasts and on social media, it's not those people anymore. They're not popular. It was a short little trend. And now people are starting to lean towards something that's more blunt and bold, and comedians who speak their mind. That's popular now. That's why all these plants and phonies are trying to join independent media, because they see how much money Joe Rogan's making and that nobody wants to listen to these leftists. Okay. So let's get to anti-Semitism. If you tell yourself that I'm more important because of who I am and my hate speech is more important than their hate speech, you could tell yourself that. But the number of people is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking who believe you. So just like BLM, even if you think you're more important, and even if you think your tragedies are more tragic, and even if you think that everything is so much worse when it happens to you, but not other people, that type of behavior is only going to make more and more people not trust you. And then when they don't trust you, you want speech laws to say that they have to. It's not going to make people like you more. Like trying to force them with hate speech laws, trying to disproportionately shut down their protests and gaslight people into thinking that they're all terrorists. Like, you could do it. It's just not going to work. Like, Ben Shapiro is less popular than he's probably ever been. And I'm not saying he can't get views. I'm just saying like the ratio of people who agree and disagree with him is probably at an all-time low in the last 5 years. Matt Walsh, his breakdown of what's going on got more views than Ben Shapiro's. So he might get Candace Owens soon because Ben's narrative is not that popular. Do some people agree with him? Absolutely. But is it as many as it was 2-3 years ago? Absolutely not. And it lacks self-awareness and self-accountability. And it's like, it's not working. So I just don't even really understand like where this is going. Cause like, you know, I agree with certain takes I've even heard 20, 30 years ago where people had said, not only is this not good for America, obviously, it's not really even good for Israel because Israel's existence depends on having allies. And of course, America at this point is essentially attached at the hip. It's like, I don't even think America can do anything. Can I say that? I don't know. Can America even have an opinion about this? It's like this country is so whatever. But in general, it's like, you know, at a certain point, you do want to get along with certain people. Like you do want to have more allies than not. It's going to be difficult, obviously. But at the end of the day, I really do feel like, although, you know, the reaction to October 7th has done more PR damage to Israel than anything. And they don't have to agree with it, but it's like, it's just the truth. And I'm not telling them what to do, but it's the same thing with like when Trump won. To be honest, I wasn't like pumped and like my friends all were. I was hanging out with my friends. They all liked Trump way more than I did at the time. And they were super happy. But I was like not that thrilled. But the thing was, what always freaked me out was not just that people liked or disliked Trump. The people that hated Trump were crazy. Like it wasn't just him, the reaction to him. It's the same with the lockdown and a virus and COVID or whatever. It's like the reaction being crazier than the actual thing leads people in a different direction. To get after the government and the people who did that to you, sure. But, you know, at a certain point to just like go nuts at everybody who slightly disagrees, like it's just not ever going to be popular. And the arguments that I've heard at least are just not the greatest, like from an outsider point of view. And you know, if you really wanted people in America to love Jewish people and love Israel and stop the hate, it's like almost like passing these speech laws is going to do the exact opposite. It's only going to make more people be like, no. Like I don't have a problem with America being allied with Israel. I never have. My issue is it seems a little bit lopsided, in my opinion, as an American. Speech laws in my country against the First Amendment. Foreign aid while we're bankrupt. Why can't you guys take out a loan? Why do we have to take out debt in order to give money that we don't have to support a war that not only we don't have the money, we're taking out more debt to do it, or we're always increasing our debt, but it's only making more and more people hate us. Like it's same with like the Ukraine thing. Like how long are we going to fund that war? I have no problem with Russia or Ukraine. It's just like, why does America have to fund that war? We have to go in more debt in order to fund a war with money we don't have. Why can't Zelensky take out a loan? Why can't Israel take out a loan? Why can't they get money from someone else? Why does it always have to be America all the time? I'm down with the relationship, but it's like we give that and we get a bunch of countries hating us and speech laws against our Constitution and people like Ben Shapiro running around calling everybody a terrorist when we know what he wants to do to terrorists. Like it's insane. And a lot of the students are Jewish and not all of them are terrorists. And some of them want to stop the war. They might not be right. They might not be my allies. They might, you know, they might hate me because of the color of my skin. But the First Amendment's the First Amendment. And the double standards and the hypocrisy is my problem, not the fact that some people don't like me because of my race, religion, or skin. I don't care. That's life. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's not a winner. Everybody's not nice. Everybody doesn't have good intentions. A lot of it's projection and inferiority, or, you know, they're just upset with themselves, so they project it onto you. But you can't legislate that out of the world by trying to police speech all the time. It's diabolical. So it's like outside of my opinion on the First Amendment in America, it's not the fact that we're aligned to me. It's the fact that it just seems extremely, extremely lopsided. And then it's like, you can't even talk in your own country. I mean, it's very demeaning as a man. It's like, you're going to pass a law that says that I can't say that one race and one religion owns a lot of media companies or influences politicians. I mean, and then on the same hand, the same people calling you a conspiracy theorist for saying that, then out of the other side of their mouth, they'll be like, yeah, it's true, but we also invented vaccines and stuff. And it's like, okay, I don't care. I'm not a jealous person. I don't look at like the NBA and notice that it's mostly black and cry. It's like, I play basketball. I'm pretty good. I'm not Jokic good. I can't be in the NBA. And there's other people that are better than me, but I'm not a jealous person. I don't look at another race and be like, oh, I'm very capable to live my life and do what I do. And I'm not the best at everything. And I don't need to be. That's not my issue. My issue is that the same people that are saying it's a conspiracy theory, anti-Semitism, to say that something's happening, 5 seconds later, like a Dennis Prager, he'll be like, no, actually it is happening. But it's hate speech when you say that it's happening, but it is happening and we're great, but you can't say it. It's like, what do you want to rip out my balls and neuter me and put me on a leash? Like, dude, at a certain point, like, is that what America's relationship is? We have speech laws. You can't talk about it, but then you'll say that it's happening, but we just can't. Like, it's like, dude, how is that going to make people like you? How is that good PR for your ethnicity? It's not. It's crazy counterproductive. But, I can't really speak for everybody, but I just don't understand like why they can't see that, or and a lot of people do. A lot of Jewish people do see this, but then they're called crazy names by the Ben Shapiros of the world. Like the Ben Shapiro hates Dave Smith, hates Norman Finkelstein. I understand if you're pro-Israel, yeah, Norman Finkelstein is a real problem. He's a Jewish guy who sides with Gaza. It's a real problem. But like, I don't know. Can you will he debate him? Norman Finkelstein talks a little too slow for me. I know he's popular. I listened to his Candace Owens interview. It was interesting, but he talks a little slow. I got to put it on like ×4, fall asleep. But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I might cut this and keep it under an hour. I might go a little longer. Someone said, I'm watching a huge change taking place and I know it's going in the wrong way. Well, the country is definitely going in the wrong direction. I could see that. This country's so scrambled with like culture wars. Like when Zuby, and I'm not shilling for Dubai because I understand a lot of people don't like Dubai, but like when Zuby was talking about Dubai, he said like there's not crazy, even though they have an Islamic government, but like there's not crazy weird culture subversion where like people are fighting over 15 different things and they don't even know like what they're talking about anymore because they're so convinced that they're right about a different topic. Like the American culture war of left, red, blue, pharmaceutical mass, Palestine, Trump, Biden, like people are so scrambled. They like don't even know what's going on anymore. So it's like, it's easy to say, oh, the right is wrong because they're, the right is so wrong because they do this, and this. And it's easy to be like, well, the left sucks because these are the kids. But that's what the parties are doing in America. They use the false paradigm to just make you believe that they're someone that they're not. Someone said, holding Matt's feet to the fire is working. He's finally speaking out. Twitter is a fascinating place. Like Twitter is a place that they're probably going to come after TikTok because people are not popular who have for years tried to gatekeep their own popularity. And I believe it's one of two things. I want to be clear about this. On one hand, I do believe that because of the internet, because of the lockdowns, because of Trump selling vaccines, a lot of people have hopped off the narrative that the Republican Party is the real deal. And they've started doing more research to figure out, like, why is the Republican Party so corrupt and sold out? And why are even all my heroes like complete frauds? So millions more people have done more research. There's alternate platforms, and they've come to a lot of the same conclusions that I and hundreds of millions of others have come to. On another hand, I always do believe that the popularity in some ways is astroturfed. Like, they tried to act like Trump was so unpopular in 2016, and it clearly wasn't true. And that's why so many people are so passionate about Trump, is because the media tried to gaslight everybody into thinking this isn't popular. Of course, he's controversial. Of course, a lot of people don't like Trump, but he always was that popular. They just tried to pretend like he wasn't in order to win an election. In my opinion, this is what Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro tried to do in 2019. I don't believe their narrative was as popular as they claim it was, but I saw and I'm not playing the victim because it's whatever, but I saw what they did, and it's basically like they were like algorithmically trying to blacklist everybody. Oh, that person retweeted that person, blacklist them. Oh, that person knows we're passing speech laws, blacklist them. Send Charlie Kirk there, send Ben Shapiro there, let them do their little thing, and then we're gonna it wasn't even that popular then. It's obviously more popular now for multiple reasons, but even then, it was a concerted effort from the Republican Party and Conservative Inc., which is what people call big conservative media, to basically shield people from ever seeing that stuff. So they had this perception that they were right and they were popular. Candace Owens completely destroyed that because she never talked about that stuff, which is why she got a job there. She never really, she did what people wanted her to do for the most part. So she got there. As soon as she did a lot of research and was like, you know what? I want to talk about this topic because I believe it. Now it's a problem. But if she would have said all the things she said before, she never would have got the job there. And I knew this in 2019. I'm not playing the victim, but it's like, I know the line. I could see what the lines are. I could see who believes what before what. Like, it's not that hard after you're studying and researching every day for a profession. I got a lot of time on my hands. I've put in a lot of work. But now everybody's starting to realize it. And there's multiple things going on. But why did even Candace talk about that? It was October 7th, and the response to October 7th got her reporting on it. And this is what I want to say about, and I understand that like Israel's got some issues in the Middle East and it's not all fun and games. It's not like I'm asking them to sit there and lay over. I get they want to defend themselves. I get that it's not, peace, love, and positivity in the Middle East. I understand. I'm sympathetic to that, just like I'm sympathetic to other sides. But, here's the truth is like that narrative does better when nobody's looking at it. It's just the truth. That narrative sounds more honest when there's not a big event to really scrutinize it. That narrative sounds better when Prager, Shapiro, and Charlie are running around, saying transgenders are, corrupt, but also go to Israel. Like, that's where that narrative really shines. Once there's a huge spotlight and everybody starts really like dissecting what's going on, not in sympathy to Palestine or Hamas, not in sympathy to Iran, just like it's like with Russia and Ukraine. People aren't like, I love Russia randomly. It's like they're doing research on Russia. They're doing research on Ukraine. And they're coming to the conclusion, you know what? A lot of people are like, I like Putin more than Zelensky. I don't feel connected to this war. And you understand? It's like that. It's not like people just majestically became pro-Putin overnight or pro-Russia. I'm not even saying they are. It's like they're just analyzing that war and coming to their own conclusions based on critical thinking and information. It's the same thing with Israel and Palestine. Like, that's just my opinion, but I do believe it's true. I wouldn't say it. That narrative that they've been jamming down our throats for 70, 80 years, it makes a lot more sense when there is no debates on it. It makes a lot more sense when it is not being like looked at and studied, and have people like Candace Owens, like, having this person and this person showing both sides. Like, it's not doing well when that happens. So then like it just ramps up and it's like more speech regulation, more this, more that. And then people just disagree with it even more. Now, Matt Walsh is talking about it. Matt Walsh never would have talked about this. I'm not trying to act like I know the guy. He likes the money he's making. He likes his position. He likes having a network and a studio. Who wouldn't? He doesn't want to talk about this stuff. You think Matt Walsh wrote an article about this 10 years ago? You think he doesn't know about it? He doesn't want to talk about it. Why? It's not a fun topic to talk about for many because it's a closed door to a lot of power and money. With that being said, even Matt Walsh is being forced to talk about it because it's just getting so ridiculous and so over the top, and the Republican Party is being so fake and ridiculous. It's like they sent $100 billion to a foreign country. You got the Speaker of the Republican House selling out Americans. They're waving Ukrainian flags, and this dude is crying about systemic racism and saying that it's like, the conservatives who disagree are like, this is ridiculous, So it's like they're not talking about it because they hate a country or a group of people. It's just getting so blatant in our faces that even Matt Walsh, who probably doesn't even want to talk about this, is going to talk about this. Self-awareness goes a long way. I don't know what to say, but it's like acting like you don't know why. It's the same reason I did that whole like red pill manosphere video the other day. If you haven't watched it, I think it's an interesting breakdown. I understand to some people, red pill manosphere means working out and exercising and psychology. Sure. But I'm talking about, more like the people that are like, this is too weak. We got to go way harder on women, this and that, like taking it to even the next level, whatever. Whether you agree with it or not, I think it's important to analyze why it's happening. And that's what I did in that video. It's like, I have an opinion about certain people. I dislike and like certain people. I think they're interesting. But the point of that video was like, this is why it's happening. if you're not honest about why, it's just going to keep happening. It's the same thing with anti-Semitism and the speech laws. It's like you could say this, that, and that, and blah, blah, blah. But like if you don't understand why and you're not honest about why, then it's not going to stop. We've seen it with so many topics in this country. And that's the one thing. I don't know what the future is going to look like, but as crazy as the country is getting, you notice that there is cultural advancement where things that seemed way too crazy 5 years ago, 6 years ago, you get called racist a million times. You just don't care anymore. You're not going to be bullied by people that are not intellectually honest and use labels and smear words to try to make you look bad and false connections to people that you have no part of. It doesn't no one cares anymore. I've never said anything that's like hateful. It's just like if I talk about race or ethnicity, you call it racist. I really cared in 2016. I really cared in 2017. I really cared in 2018. 2024, it's like I know what I'm saying. People know what I'm saying. I have millions of people listening of all ethnicity. No one's listening to you. I don't care. I'll read a few comments and then I'm probably going to. Someone said pride will be the downfall. Absolutely. Pride, lack of self-awareness, and hypocrisy. But that's the thing is like certain people want double standards. You see it all over the country. It's not just one group. Certain races and certain groups want double standards. They need double standards. The second you take the double standards away, you're a racist or you're an anti-Semite. For different reasons, people want and that's why, to be honest, that's why they're getting so mad at Candace Owens, because Candace Owens, when she took the victim card away from black people, a lot of black people got pissed off, but, Republicans liked it. They're like, yeah, that's right, Candace, take that victim card away. She tried to take a victim card away from the group that doesn't exist and must not be named, but they do exist, but I'm trying to be respectful, but you can't even talk about it without being called hateful, Jewish people. And then when she tried to take their victim card away, look what's going on now. I mean, and that's what she's doing with like saying, we've had tragedies too. The Bolsheviks killed millions of Christians too. Nothing makes people more mad than taking their victim card away. And I'm not saying I need a victim card, but it's like you take a victim card away from a few groups and they hate you for it. Because what does taking a victim card away do? It levels the playing field and says we all deserve the same speech laws. We all deserve the same laws. Hate is hate no matter which way it goes. Who hates that more than people who hate a level playing field? They want double standards. They feel like their history on multiple sides, whether it's slavery or World War II, demands different rules. Okay, so why is Candace so effective now? Because she's saying, well, listen, I think the Bolsheviks was one of the craziest events, and I don't think your event was as like, whoa, that's, and she like, because the rabbi was trying to say that October 7th was the worst event ever and saddest and like uniquely different than everything. And Candace was like, it's horrific what happened on October 7th, but I'm not going to say that it was worse than Bolsheviks killing millions of people. She's like, I think people killing people is evil. Well, that's not compatible with the Judeo-Christian Republican Party, And if Matt Walsh is going to go that route, which he is going that route, watch what they do to him. It's going to be the same thing. He's going to get the same lies, the same exaggerations, the same you're working with the people you're not, the same you're being hateful, the same you're being racist. So I'm interested to see if he leans into this because he's going to get the same treatment. And that's what a lot of people have figured out. And it sucks because like this country only works if we're honest. This country only works if we are real about it. Like if not, it's just going to fall apart. Let me read a few. I mean, the comment section's a little wilding out. Nobody's really giving me very much to. Someone said Jordan Peterson's a closet Bolshevik. I mean, he could be. I don't know if that he is that. I know he likes certain pictures and stuff, but I'm not gonna throw out false accusations at him like that. I just think that to me, he's just not a happy guy. Why is he never smiling? Why is he always like doing weird subversive stuff? I mean, it could be, but I stopped listening to him personally because him talking about feminists is great, but him trying to subvert Christians and do some weird like rewriting of the Bible tour. I don't need like psychological breakdowns of the Bible from Jordan Peterson. It just feels subversive to me. Like I don't even think he believes it. So it's one of those things where it's like, let me tell you what it says. And it's like, you're not a pastor, bro. You could talk about it, but like, I'd rather listen to you debate equality of outcome with a feminist TV host. I'm not interested in you crying about getting the vaccine, or you falling for Matthew McConaughey Second Amendment propaganda, or you trying to subvert Christians. I'm not the target audience for that, but there are people. Anthony said, we have identified the problem. What can we as individuals do to change our course? Well, thanks, Anthony. I'm going to say this real quick. I've said this. If people have watched a lot, they probably heard it. You clearly haven't, so you're asking. So I do appreciate it, though. First, I think it all starts personal. Like, that's the old saying, like, change yourself to change the world. A lot of these activists that are sitting out, it's like they do everything but change themselves, take care of themselves, strive to be a person of matter, of substance, anything. Just being a good person, I think, makes a huge difference. And there's many ways to do that in your personal life. Some of it's through business, some of it's through family. I think it's all about self-awareness and self-accountability. I think that's more important than your political views or any of that stuff. I've always thought that. I've always said that. I still stand to that. Politically, there's many ways that you can solve problems. I mean, for me, I thought the media was corrupt. I thought the media was controlling the culture, and I thought I could do a better job. I've done that. I try to continue to do that. I fall short sometimes, and there's probably better ways to do it, but I think I've been pretty successful considering I've worked pretty much by myself the entire time since like 2007 of doing videos. So it's like, politics, media, culture, there's different ways to fix it. But I think politically, to me, we're not voting our way out of this. I don't want Joe Biden to win, but we're not voting our way out of this. We have the House. They don't care. So this is where Trump is like the best and worst thing. He is quite the anomaly. To me, in many ways, Trump is like the worst, not because he's literally the worst, but he's the only person that people think are going to fix things. Everyone knows Dan Crenshaw is not going to, except the people who vote for him. Everybody knows Mike Johnson sucks, that Mitch McConnell sucks. Everybody knows that, even with Ron DeSantis, people were dunking on Ron DeSantis, even though you could argue that he's done more than Trump has done. But even if you dislike DeSantis, everyone was like, DeSantis sucks. They have no problem calling out DeSantis, but it was for weird reasons. Anyway, Trump's the only one that people just seem to wait for. So to me, it's like, whether he wins or loses, like, how long are people going to wait? Like, whether he wins or loses, the solution is not to like wait for him. People are saying calling out Matt Walsh on Twitter has made him make a stance on something that he was not talking about. That just shows you that standing your ground, being a man, being honest, and doing journalism, basic honest journalism, you get results. If every Trump supporter and every journalist gave Trump real interviews and asked him the questions about the things he did last time, he probably would have to do the right thing, but he doesn't have to do anything because there's nothing he can do. I'm watching this. There's a guy on Twitter. You should follow him. If you want not a right winger who's honest, follow Michael Tracy. I don't agree with him on everything, but I like Michael Tracy. He's running around just calling out all the people in MAGA that are Trump supporters, trying to gaslight their audience into thinking that Speaker Mike Johnson's so bad for this bill and Lindsey Graham's so bad. Sure, of course, yeah, they suck. But Donald Trump helped whip up votes. Donald Trump worked with Lindsey Graham and Mike Johnson to get this done. He has a lot of political power. He used it to flip votes and get this foreign aid bill done. Everybody knows that. It's out in multiple publications. Trump has spoken about that Mike Johnson's doing the best he could do. Why aren't they reporting that? They're like professional Trump propagandists, So it's like, that's, as much as they pretend like they're helping you because they're brainwashing you to like Trump more than you should, really what they're doing is preventing anybody from like holding their ground against the Republican Party. So politically, I believe the solution is vote if you want. If you're inspired to vote locally and politically, sure, go ahead. But it doesn't end there. And idol worshiping Donald Trump is not the answer. So it's like, he's the only person in politics that people just seem to think they don't care what he does. Like, this was my issue too. I haven't talked about it in over a year, but with the DeSantis versus Trump thing, I still believe, and people could laugh at me and say, oh, I'm cocky or whatever, but I do believe it's true. I think I'm one of the best journalists who covered the Trump versus DeSantis thing accurately. Everybody else was lying about it, or 95%. A lot of the DeSantis people, like Dave Rubin, they're talking about things they never talked about just because they like DeSantis, but it didn't seem genuine. On the Trump side, they're getting mad at DeSantis for all these things that Trump himself was doing. Like, it didn't make sense. I get why you trust Trump over DeSantis, but the pettiness, it just showed me. I'm like, 95% of people in this game, they're not trying to give you a real analysis of what's going on and what to do. They're just in the bag for somebody, and they will act like a bratty high school girl trying to tear down your dress because she's jealous, or a guy trying to steal your shoes because he can't get them, or whatever. You know, you took the prom date, or like, that's politics. Like, these people are nuts. They're so fake. It's ridiculous. So like, how are we ever going to hold our party accountable when everybody's constantly lying about what's happening? So politically, to me, the solution is really just like being honest, being straightforward. We're seeing the result. We're already getting all these results right now because of people coming out like Matt Walsh and Candace Owens. And the reason that they're saying anything is because they've seen it somewhere, and they can't live with themselves if they don't talk about it. So it's like, you know, this like dick riding a politician is as crazy as watching Rachel Maddow. And I know this is why my audience on Facebook often agrees with me, often disagrees with me, but it's like they're Trump, Republican, like, we're doing such a good job, we're going to beat Biden. I mean, that's for sure. Not only that's not going to work, but that's literally what got us here. Them being so naive for 30 years, thinking George Bush was different and Romney and McCain. It's like you got to get out of that mindset. It doesn't mean you have to vote for Biden. It doesn't mean you're a Democrat. It's just like, that's honestly what's going to politically solve it. And why I'm having so much fun and I'm so grateful is like, it's working right now. This year, I'll just be transparent. I don't have to, but I have not made more money this year than I ever have doing what I'm doing. But I still consider it one of my favorite years and one of my best years. Why? Physically, I'm in better shape. I'm getting jacked and yoked and, getting better cardio and playing more sports than I was because I felt like swarmed. Also, even last month, I consider it one of my favorite months in my career of doing news. Did I get the most money? No. But culture has started to shift and people are starting to listen. Topics that I told people about in 2019, nobody wanted to talk about, but now everybody's talking about it. So it's like, I feel like change is happening because over time, things just become obvious. It's like if you talked about building a wall 20 years ago and nobody wanted to listen to you, and now everybody, at a certain point, you're like, oh, look, finally they understand what I'm talking about. Finally, they understand that trade with China, like, it's rewarding when people start caring about it. But I do feel like we've gotten way more results, like maybe not on my Facebook comments, but in like most people that do news, they use Twitter the most. Like, it's not like they don't use everything else, but they see Twitter, they respond on Twitter. Like, it's a place where information is really flowing. Everybody that's lying is getting ratioed. Everybody that's telling the truth is getting more popular. And for the first time in a long time, political analysts are responding and covering topics that they wouldn't cover. This same logic needs to be applied to Donald Trump. That's it. Same thing. If we all did this to Trump, he'd actually do a good job. And I know people will say, well, now is not a good time because it's the election. I remember this in 2020. It's like politics is like Groundhog Day. Sure, wait till after the election to talk about it, but they always have a plot, so you never talk about it. If anybody's paying attention, doesn't it feel like Groundhog Day where it's like, don't talk about it now because of Russia collusion. Don't talk about it now because of COVID. The election's coming up. The election never ended. They're going after Trump. It's the election. It's like there's always a topic, so you never scrutinize your own side. That's the whole false paradigm. That's the whole two-party system. It's like, how do you not get it by now? It's so crazy to me. So if you don't want, like, I remember people in 2020 telling me, or 2019, don't talk about this because of the election. So I come back in 2021. How about now? Well, we got to wait till August. Mike Lindell said this. Okay, it's August. Well, the court case with Donald Trump is going on, so we don't want to do it. Okay. There was like 4 months. It was hilarious. There's 4 months, I remember, where everyone started saying what I was saying and sounding like me. And then the second the Alvin Bragg arrest happened, they like went back in NPC mode and they're like, no longer. He's our hero. It's like, it's so obvious to me and millions of people, but to millions, it's not. So I'm trying to be patient this year because as much as I am excited and I am doing 2 streams a day and I am trying to get jacked and I am trying to talk on Twitter and get results, at the same time, everyone's not going to wake up or get your opinion when you want them to. So sometimes you got to fall back and just figure out when it's going to happen. The right way, let me see. Someone said you take the high ground where and when you can. Tucker took ground. Don't knock people that take ground like they are the enemy. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but let's see. Someone said Trump supporting. I want to read this. Hold on. That's Facebook. Trump supporting that effing bill has really been akin to COVID revisited. Why are you encouraging a bill so huge in scope against the U.S. citizens' best interest? Well, this is why there's so much, and I don't know why people are doing it, but between QAnon and then also just people that really like Trump that say, I'm against QAnon, but I'm going to make excuses for everything they do. It's like professional brain scramble media. Like at the end of the day, you look at all this stuff and the bills that he's passing and the things he's working on, and either you face it and be like, listen, I still like him more than Joe Biden. I still want to vote for him, but I feel a little bit betrayed that he's working with Mike Johnson to send our money to foreign countries. Or you go the route and say he got tricked. I think Steve Bannon and all these people, Michael Tracy's pointing them all out. He's like, all these people are trying to gaslight you into thinking that Donald Trump just got tricked. If he got tricked, why is he always getting tricked? Why do you want a leader that gets tricked all the time? That's a fool. And if he's not getting tricked, he's just in on it. Like nobody wants to face the truth, so they just keep gaslighting you. So with the Trump bill, to me, I can't possibly be surprised less. Like, and I understand that some people are just saying, oh my gosh, unbelievable, whatever. But it's like when people are like, I can't believe Donald Trump signed that bill. What part of the last 4 years has told you anything else? Like, if you really objectively observe what he's doing, it's so obvious that he's pretty much just a part of it. Yeah, he'll deviate on a few things the same way that like Ted Cruz will deviate on a few things, but then they all go right back to the same teats, you know? And this is why it's so important to not police hate speech. When I criticize Democrats and when I do reporting on Democrats, everybody says, anomaly, wow, thank you so much for your great journalism. You're not being hateful. You're just being honest. Oh, you called out BLM. You're not being hateful. You're just being honest. Okay. And then when I do the same accurate reporting on Donald Trump, people look at me and go, you're so hateful. That's MSNBC. Why is that hateful? The truth sounds like hate speech to people who hate the truth. And this is not racial, political. This is a universal statement. The truth sounds like hate speech to people who hate the truth. You can't allow politicians to police hate because the truth sounds like hate for some reason to most people. It's like I do a report pointing out how Trump took a meeting with Bill Gates. He passed what he said through executive order in 2019. He took money from Pfizer. He hired the pharmaceutical lobby. Donald Trump's handprints are all over everything pharmaceutical because he sold out or he just turned his back on you. I report that. You're being so hateful. And then all these stupid gaslighting Republican shill goobers, they're like, I don't want to criticize Trump because I'm a Christian. Christians don't judge. Bro, look at your Instagram and YouTube. It's all judgment. Your entire thing is liberals are doing this, liberals are doing that, liberals are doing this, rhinos are doing that, rhinos are doing that, the uniparty's doing this. All you do is critique because you're trying to be an American patriot doing journalism to save the country. Fair, you're just a Trump nut gobbler. That's all you are. You know what I'm saying? You're like, don't gaslight people into thinking it's your Christianity that prevents you from criticizing Trump. It's the Mar-a-Lago visits, the steak. And every time I say this stuff, it's like 3 days later, I'll watch. They're doing a work class at Mar-a-Lago. They're getting a picture. They're over here. I know what's going on. You shut your mouth and you get opportunities. That's fine. But don't gaslight me and gaslight other people into thinking I'm being hateful. I'm not being hateful. I'm just doing journalism. I'm not doing professional nut gobbling business. That's not what I'm here for. It's never what I'm here for. If you want to make money, but that's not my top priority. I consider last month one of my favorite and best months ever, and it's not because I made the most income. It's because I got the results I wanted to get, and it's not results for myself. I'm not here just to do what I'm doing for myself. And I'll tell you this too. When I made my God Bless hats and God Bless merch, I have a few Dream Rare things, but I went with God Bless. It wasn't like, oh, let me use God's name and make money off God. I'm making merchandise. Tens of thousands of people are going to buy it. They're going to wear it. It's going to make a difference. What message do I want on the hat? What message do I want on this shirt? Should some say Anomaly and Dream Rare? Of course. I don't have enough of my own merch. I should. It would probably sell more because a lot of people want to wear Anomaly. Some people don't even believe in God that watch me. They don't want to wear God Bless. But I was like, what's bigger than me? Saying I'm epic and I'm great on a shirt? Sure, that's funny or whatever. But like, God bless. Now, when I wear my jacket out, God bless, a bunch of godly people say, wow, that's an amazing jacket. Where do I get that? Wow, that's so great. And then I have a conversation with someone who believes in God of any religion for 30 minutes. And we're talking about Jesus and they invite me to their church. I've had that so many times with my merchandise. So it's not that I need to really defend it, but I'm just being honest. It's like I could have just put Anomalies the GOAT on a shirt and sold some, but I wanted a message that's deeper than just me. Like just pushing me on shirts all the time is whatever, but what if I did something bigger? What if I did something that mattered more? That's how I think about my content. Like, yeah, of course I don't want to be broke, especially in this shitty economy. I definitely don't want to be broke, but what am I really here for? Why did I really start? A lot of people forget that, or a lot of people never were that, but it's like, that's why last month was my favorite month. I didn't make the most, but the most change has happened in the right direction for the American Constitution. The right cultural shifts are happening where people are tired of being falsely smeared and lied about. And a lot of it people don't realize, but it's the root of a lot of issues going on. So to blame this or that, it's just the truth. Like, why does the Republican Party like liberty until a pharmaceutical lockdown happens and then they're Mr. Pfizer? Why does America care about fiscal responsibility during an election, but they never do it? Why is America obsessed with giving money and speech laws to one foreign country and even more money to another country? Why? At a certain point, if you're an intelligent person or an honest person, you start to ask yourself why. If your whole political worldview revolves around Donald Trump, he's the sun of your universe, you're just going in circles. And you're never figuring this stuff out because you're not figuring out why. Your whole baseline is wrong. And then you'll say, oh, you're not optimistic. My baseline is Earth and Christ. My baseline is not Trump. I'm not revolving around Trump. I'm looking at the world and the country, and I believe in God. My optimism doesn't come from a politician. If yours does, you're the sad one, not me. Do I look sad? Look, I smiled just now more than Jordan Peterson ever has in his entire life. The guy's miserable. I don't know why. Find God, Jordan Peterson. Anyway, stop wrestling with God. Find God. Someone in the Bible wrestled with God. We get it. But ultimately, those who believe in God and love God are the ones who are going to be blessed, not the ones who want to fight him. But whatever. In general, I don't even remember what I was talking about. But yeah, it's like once you ask the question why, you start getting answers. But most content, not all, a lot of it's changing. A lot of content is designed to keep you stuck in a box. QAnon, stuck in the box while pretending like we're looking at everything, but you're stuck in that box. Trump Dick Rider content, stuck in a box. Liberal content, stuck in a box. Progressive, like they want you in a box because if you're in a box, you're never going to think. But people are starting to think. And it's a beautiful thing because it's going to come eventually. I believe that. You can't, like, unless they can complete. And this is why I say what I say, because personally, as much as, yes, I believe in God, I believe in salvation. I pray that I, get to the point where I'm led into heaven. However, I'm not called to just sit on this earth and roll over. What type of life is that? No Christian has ever thought that in history until now. It's like, oh, let's just roll over. It's like, said no Christian ever, or else there'd be no buildings. Who do you think built a lot of these buildings? Not just Christians. I'm just saying, like, why is that the new Christianity? It's like this brainwashed, warped, like, let's just roll over. It's like, yeah, that's why you're losing every country. With that being said, like, I feel called to not end up in a gulag. There were Christians who won and thrived and, built stuff. And then there's Christians who had to end their life running away from people trying to throw them in a camp. And this is to other religions and races as well. So it's like, I'm not sitting here and rolling over. It's like, either this country is going to stay afloat or they're going to go the wrong route. And this even goes to England and Australia. Like, look at what Australia did during COVID. And this is the threshold. This is why for those asking for the solution, to me, the most important thing is self-awareness. Because when all the men in America are men and all the conservatives in America are strong, then they can't, even with laws, they can't do certain things. You understand? Like Australia, they're not running around throwing people in camp, but they kind of did at a certain point, but they didn't kill them. They just had them like watch things. And it was like this weird, like little vacation, but it's like, they can't do that because they don't have the numbers. And I'm not saying they all want to, but like at a certain point that absolutely could happen. It has happened, but it involves compliance. So if enough people are awake, no matter how bad they want to do that, they can't do it. That's why the First Amendment's so important. They're trying to pass speech laws for a foreign country to say you can't say this, but so far the First Amendment's held up, sort of. But if they can get past that threshold where the First Amendment doesn't hold up, now we're in trouble. If they could get a politician in who says, let's run around and use the police of the military to collect all the guns, now we have a problem. Like, it's not at that point. I'm not trying to fearmonger. I don't think it'll get to that point. But the way they get to that point is by tricking both sides. Look at that bad white Trump supporter. You don't want him to have a gun. Look at those crime. You don't want him to have that. Look at the Hamas and the Palestine. You don't want the First Amendment now, but you want it next year. They're trying to trick both sides into slowly taking our rights. And I'm not saying all the politicians are in on it. And I'm not saying even 80% of the people involved are even smart enough to know. But look at the COVID lockdown as a blueprint. People went along with crazy stuff. This is why I was yelling like a psycho or an awesome person with a soul in my supermarket. It was 2022, 2 years after the initial lockdown. California got out, and then I got a conservative county playing along. It's not simply like, oh, I can't put on a pharmaceutical mask to stand in the store. It's, hello, you all know this is not making sense, yet you keep playing along. How do you think they throw people in gulags? How do you think they get to the point that everyone's freaking out on the left and the right and all ethnicities? By people playing along to things that they know are insane. Why are you playing along? What the hell's... it's like embarrassing. That's like a blueprint of like, what will people do if you can convince them it's right? Now they just got to convince you taking away the First Amendment's right. Now they, instead of a virus, they got to convince you that this is a virus and this speech is a virus. And that's what they're doing right now. They just can't do it. That's why it's so like, the solution is not worshiping a politician or getting tricked back and forth. It's standing there and paying attention and being honest about it. And if enough people are, they can't do certain things. So that's that, like this election, part of me literally doesn't care about it. Part of me wants Trump to win so he could build a wall and see what he can do and potentially finesse peace in foreign countries. Part of me thinks Trump's a total fraud and it's like a ping pong game back and forth. And whatever it takes to wake people up, I don't even care what happens in the election. I don't know which one I think. We'll see how inspired I am in November. Right now, I don't care. Maybe by then I'll be inspired to vote for the guy, Trump, not Biden, obviously. But it's like right now, I don't care as long as people wake up. Because if Trump wins for 4 years and people go back to sleep, I'd rather temporary problems for long-term solutions. Personally, I just don't care anymore. Because it's like, what's going to make... And that's the funniest thing is like the lockdown was insane during Trump. And they needed a Donald Trump there because if they had a Hillary Clinton there, you think Republicans would have locked down for Hillary Clinton? No, they would have been like, hell no, Hillary China Clinton, you're trying to trick us into slavery. But when Donald Trump says the virus is Chinese and we're American and we're going to fight the invisible virus with China, all the Republicans locked down for a month or two, and people like Dan Bongino vaccinate himself because he thinks he's fighting China with the American vaccine. I listened to Dan, and he said that's why he got vaccinated. The virus was Chinese. The vaccine was American. American beats China. No offense, but that's the boomer brain. I'm not saying this to be rude. I'm saying this so people can make better decisions next time. I covered these things. I wish Dan was a fan of the show. He could have watched my show, and with all the information that I was presenting, he probably would have made a different decision. But he thought, America beats China. Moon landing boomer. Like, it's just like, how much of that are we going to do? Because they're going to keep running that blueprint. So interjecting into other people's view is not like, I need attention. Guys, I don't care. I seriously don't. I got it too much attention. It's fine. It's because it's working and people are finally addressing these things. And if you don't have a conversation about it or hold your ground, we just get steamrolled, and then we get in the next trap, and then everybody's lying about it. It's so important now to let people know what you think about what Matt Walsh said. It was very honest. It was very important. And I'm very intently watching what he's saying and his responses to other conservatives, because I see them going the same route they went with everybody probably for decades. But in 2019, it's either us or them. You're either on Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk's side, or we're throwing you to the far right, and there's nothing you could do about it. It's like, bro, you're not going to shame me into agreeing with something that's not true. I don't care who says what, on what side, or what person, or what personality, or what they said 5 years ago in a video that you don't like. It's not going to, like, I'm not that dumb that I'm going to be like, oh, actually, I agree with Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk because they're going to call me names if I don't agree. No, I'm looking at the logic, the facts that don't care about your feelings. That's what I'm looking at. And if it doesn't align with what you're saying and it aligns with what someone else is saying, it is what it is. It's not my fault. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not backing down. So now they're doing the same thing to Matt. It's wild. They're saying he's a groiper, and they're trying to say he's aligning himself and he's pleasing the groipers. And Matt's like, can you disagree with my argument, or are you just gonna just say all these things? And you know, it's like he's getting that treatment, and he's not gonna back down, I don't think. And I wonder at what point, you know, it's gonna be too far for the Schnelly Schneier, the Daily Wire, the Jeremy boring. I'm sorry, Jeremy Schnoring. He's snoring. He's boring. You snore because he's a bore. We get it. At what point is Matt gonna say too much where they're not comfortable? I feel like it's getting mighty close. It's getting boring, snoring. The old man is passing hate speech laws because only one race, one religion, one country needs them, but everybody else is hateful, and I have no self-awareness. Boring, snoring. Sorry. Good night, guys. God bless. I'm not trying to put you to sleep, but anyway. Someone said the youngest boomers are 60. Yeah, and I made a video on the boomers. It's like, I'm not trying to, like, I love boomers. There's pros and cons to every like group of, age bracket. Like, not everybody's the same. Not everybody agrees, but there's, you have, like, overall, like, there's so many great things that boomers do. Self-awareness and not being like stubborn is not one of them. I was on a show today, and he made a really good point. He said, I want to give him credit. I know he'll probably be like, if I don't say, Royce Lopez. He made a good point, and he said, the boomers, like, a lot of the things that they accomplished, like, if you tell them it wasn't true, they kind of spiral. Like, think about, like, what the boomer generation thinks was, like, the greatest things America did. I think it was Royce, or maybe it was Mersch. I don't know. I apologize, guys. I don't know which one of you guys said it. But anyway, it's like, if you say the moon landing wasn't real, World War II, we fought with the communists, and then communism took over the world. It's like, those are kind of like their two major accomplishments. So it's like their whole history and life is a lie. If that's a lie, then everything's a lie. So they don't want to budge on any topic, because if you budge on that topic, then it's like everything they think is a lie. But a lot of things they do think is a lie. So it's like, they don't, I get there's a combination of, like, high trust society. They really trusted the government, and they trusted America, and they trusted their neighbors. And it's a combination of being, like, super high trust also with the fact that scrutinizing certain things will mean that, like, everything's a lie, which is why they're wrong about so much stuff. Like, yes, conservatism and liberty is all great, but when it comes to, like, Governor Abbott or Donald Trump, like, these people do not want to budge at all, and it's like that stubbornness is really watering down and destroying the country, like, yeah, they were sold BS. They were sold BS on the television, through the radio. I would say the American corporations have completely taken advantage of the American people. And, at the end of the day, I think that it's hard to like fathom, like, really, all of these great American companies are scamming us. All these politicians are scamming us. We didn't fight in these wars in order for freedom. And it's like, instead of embracing that tough reality, you just have to spiral at everybody and say Anomaly's a Democrat, Trump's going to save us, like Charlie Kirk's the greatest. It's like, but that's like, fortunately, I'm not saying like I don't want people to go anywhere. I love boomers. I hope they lived a long time. But at a certain point, like, if people haven't figured it out at the age of 62, they're never going to admit the truth, or 65. So it's like, it's tough because they're so right about so many things, and they're so conservative in some ways, and it's really great. And the younger generation sucks. But in many ways, it's like they're the linchpin just holding together this fake paradigm that they just can't let go of. And the second that we let go of it, like, it might not go in the right direction or quickly, but like, most Republicans under 40, they know, they know that like we're being lied to. They know that the Republican Party sucks. They're way more quick to admit that Governor Abbott sucks than maybe someone over 50 or 60. Like, they're attached to their fake pastor who's been telling them that they need to fight foreign wars for Jesus. And it's like, it's these hard like paradigms that they just don't want to let go of, where it's like, I've been told this for 30 years. It's like, well, how many mega jets does your pastor own? And how many foreign wars has he started? How many Christians have died? Like, does Jesus want you to go kill Christians across the country? I don't think so, but it's a difficult situation. So I did my message to boomers earlier. It was a little harsh, but honestly, it comes from a good place, because, the gist of that one is, because I'm not going to upload that to my audio. I'm probably just going to leave it on YouTube. But if you want to watch that, someone said, I'm 66 years old. We're open-minded and not in the box we're being put into. Not everybody. I'm not saying you, Karen, but I definitely don't. I definitely don't see it, honestly, in a majority. It's not saying everybody, but it's like, for sure, there's some people that are open-minded, but a lot that really aren't. But the whole point I was trying to talk about is like, anytime, and I'll read the super chat in a second, my guy. Have I heard the YouTube channel No White Guilt? I have not. Thank you for the super chat, but I have not heard it. But hold on. I wanted to say this real quick. I forgot what I was going to say. Darn it. Oh, yeah. When I talk about like red and blue areas, every time I talk, and this is not everybody, but like Cernovich talks about this on Twitter all the time and says how great California is and people hate it. But the reality is, and this is just true about the country, like San Francisco sucks. Los Angeles sucks. San Diego's starting to suck. The cities suck to some extent, but there's a lot of beautiful places in California, and the taxes are insane. But there's also really bad taxes in certain other states, where like California is not as bad as people think in some areas. In some areas, you're totally right. San Francisco is a shithole, but not all of California is San Francisco. And most people that don't go to the nice parts of California, they don't realize how great it really is. It's one of the best places in the country, if not the world. It's like really great landscape, and it's not completely destroyed all over the place, but it is in a lot of places. And the taxes suck and the governor sucks, sure. But when you talk about red states, they act like it's so amazing. And I'm not saying you have to hate your state. It's good to be prideful in Texas. It's good to be prideful in, Kansas or Oklahoma. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's like, when you talk about certain things, they'll be like, oh, California sucks and Texas is awesome. Austin sucks. Austin sucks just as much, in my opinion, as like San Francisco. I don't like Austin. I'm not a hater of Texas, but like, I went to Dallas during lockdowns, a year after lockdowns, and they were trying to force mask me at a hotel in Dallas. I was getting harassed to wear a mask in Texas a year and a half after the lockdown, harder than I was in my own state, in my own county. And I tried to fly back because I was like, this is ridiculous. They're harassing the crap out of me at a Marriott. I understand that it's a corporation, but Texas was not free. Dallas was annoying me, but I like a lot of parts of it. With that being said, whenever you talk about red states, I'm not saying you have to hate yourself, but it's like the same way I'll say homelessness is a problem in California, especially in Los Angeles. Imagine if I said it didn't exist. I'd be gaslighting myself. The reason Republicans are constantly voting for the worst Republicans is they don't understand the false paradigm. As Jesse Kelly put it, some of the worst Republicans in the world are in deep red states. You have all the power to elect the greatest. Like, there's no reason you should elect Dan Crenshaw or Governor Abbott. You should have the best governor. Why do you have, like, the North Dakota governor? You could have anybody in North Dakota, and you have a guy who's taking donations from Bill Gates. God knows what he's doing to the farmland there. But anyway, why? But it's because people in red states, especially conservatives, sometimes they try to act like their shit don't stink. They're like, oh, it's so great here. And the point I was trying to point out, it's like when you go to deep rural areas, it's not as booming as it was 50, 60 years ago. And I'm not talking about economically. It's like kids are dying of opioids like all over the place. In most red states, they have some of the highest opioid abuse and pharmaceutical abuse. And it's like a lot of, Republican families, it's like obesity and pharmaceutical abuse. And I'm not saying that to be rude. I'm just being honest. It's like, can we address it's like the reason these never get solved in Republican areas is because they gaslight themselves into thinking that it doesn't exist, in the same way that liberals in San Francisco gaslight themselves into thinking it doesn't exist there. So then it just keeps happening. So it's like, I'm not saying it to dunk on red states. I like the tag, but they can't fathom that Governor Abbott's a liar. Like, they just can't fathom that you don't know what you're talking about, Anomaly. We love Governor Abbott. I'm sure you do. But he's not the real deal, and neither is like any Republican governor. And the reason that they're able to do this to us is because people love it. There's something about that older Republican generation. They're just so stuck in their ways. But the bad part is, too bad they're not stuck in their ways when it comes to our values and fitness and not letting their kids die of pharmaceuticals. But the reason the kids are dying of pharmaceuticals is both parties are sold out to pharmaceuticals, and Republicans don't care that Republicans are sold out to pharmaceuticals, including Trump. They don't care. They don't care about the kids. They don't care about the future. They don't care about the youth. All they care about is the false paradigm and gaslighting themselves into thinking that they're right when they're wrong. And it's sad. And there's a real life consequence to being that stubborn. So that's what that video was about. It wasn't trying to be mean, but it was standing up for the millions of kids that are dying of pills in these rural areas. And their parents are on Facebook being like, Trump, Trump, Trump. They don't even care. And obesity mostly, it doesn't just come from lack of exercise. It comes from the food that we're being fed, because no party actually cares about it. So it's like the solution is loving and respecting ourselves. Everybody gaslighting themselves over their states and their counties. It's like, it doesn't work. Yeah, it's cool. It's nice, but like, it's not going to be forever. So that's the point of that video. If you want to go watch that, I'm not trying to be hateful. It's just like, have some respect for all of the fallen soldiers, AKA just random American kids who are just dropping dead because nobody seems to realize what the pharmaceutical industry is doing. Like, what? This doesn't need to be that way. Pharmaceuticals are killing more people than wars. I'm consistent. Yeah, I'll talk about a foreign war, but what about like the life expectancy is going backwards because of suicide and pharmaceutical deaths? It's crazy. And who cares? No one, because they're like, Trump's going to fix it. Look around you. Whether he wins or loses, that's not changing. We got to fix ourselves. We got to heal ourselves. We got to be honest about it, or else it's going to go in the same direction. Appreciate you guys. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. Thank you for being here. And, it's been a great week. It's been a, fun week for me doing two a day, because I definitely have the energy and passion. Someone said it's Boomer's fault. It's not just Boomer's fault. I'm just saying in general, like whenever you talk about states and stuff, they're like, oh, California sucks. It's great here. And it's like, can we be honest about it? And also your state is shifting because of things that you don't, and patterns that you don't want to acknowledge, that you're just like 10 years behind the wave that's coming to hit you. That's just my opinion. Appreciate you guys. God bless you. Leave a like in the algorithm. And I'm just letting you guys know, on YouTube, I never shut off my comment section. Never. It's not something I want to do. It's not something I need to do. If something becomes a top comment that I disagree with, I leave it. I'm not deleting comments or hiding them. For some reason, my YouTube's been like glitching where it'll turn off the comments. I'll turn it back on. I'll turn it off, I have to turn it on 10 times a day. It keeps turning it off. That happened on my Andrew Tate video. I'm not trying. There's nothing in the comments that like, yes, some people disagree, but for the most part, a lot of people are agreeing. Either way, I consider the comment section feedback. And if I get ratioed, there's a reason whether I agree with it or not. So, I don't do that. If you try to comment and it's not working, it's not me. I'm just letting you know. I block people on IG. Absolutely. I block people on Twitter too. I'll tell you real quick. I block people on Twitter who talk crazy amounts of shit with no profile picture. If you're going to talk shit, you at least need a profile picture. Instant blocked if you're not. Also, just certain people that are gaslighting or straw manning. If I say something and you're like, why did you say this? You get blocked. The one guy I blocked on YouTube today in the chat, he spams the same thing 1,000 times. You can't just spam. All right. Thank you for the super chat, my guy. Just let me do my stuff. Appreciate you. God bless you. Have a beautiful day. Hey, what's going on, my friends? Just a few ways to stay in touch and support if you'd like to. The first way is dreamrare.com. We have blue beanies, black beanies, pink hats, other colored hats, freedom versus tyranny shirts, stay blessed long sleeve, God is great long sleeve, and lots of more cool items coming soon. Dreamrare.com. Check out the shop.